out of game 2 of the last series.
It's been a little bit since we've seen these two teams face off, and the last time that, it feels like a little bit longer than that, time flies. But either it's the Burrito, I think, might possibly have the advantage. They do have a little bit of that momentum swing going on. Papis, of course, probably doing their own sort of warm-ups, but it still helps Burrito just having already played that set.
That's true. Coming in hot versus coming in cold and watching your opposition. We saw what Oxygen Supremacy did during Spring Split, going on a 7-2 run. It was just absolutely absurd here. But Papis did win that last week after getting a split, having to go into that third game tiebreaker. It was Papis coming out on top.
Also, a little bit of consideration that Papis did get to just witness Burrito play probably, so they also have that in their advantage. However, I'm not too certain whether either side is going to really try and take that. It could really go both ways.
Are you a hot or a cold player? Would you rather go into, let's say, a full day of SMITE? Are you better on your first game of SMITE or your last one?
It depends on how the first one goes. I think that's the best way to say it, but I think that I would probably prefer having already gotten the set warm-up. I know one thing, though, Burrito's definitely preferring that AMC still being a top pick selection in EU.
Flavor of the month, honestly, Amuzin Crabster making his debut yet again here in the Gauntlet. It was banned away in the last set a couple of times, and this is going to be showing us how much pressure this god can do, whether he's mid or in the dual lane.
And Solon Fafnir being the selections for Papis is leading me to believe that they might be looking for an objective shredding kind of composition, and sure enough, with that Huyi being locked in, that already spells so much opportunity for Papis early on if they're going to try and look for possibly the early Gold Furies or Portal Demons, try and secure some of that early map advantage.
A little bit of a hybrid mix from Burrito. You have the aggressive Osiris to dive the backline and then the very passive Geb to peel.
And I kind of like this Geb, but at the same time, I'm a little bit concerned for Geb because with the way that European teams have been starting with a little bit of a shift to the standard meta start, I'm curious as to whether or not that Geb AMC might potentially be the mid lane already spelled out for us.
That's very true. We don't know where that Amuzin Cobb is going yet. Still 2 more picks for Burrito. Fourth one from Papis is going to be that Cabrakan, surprisingly enough. Not something we've seen very often.
I love this Cabrakan pick, and I love it because of what's being followed up by it afterwards. Anytime you place those walls down, you've got a Huyi ultimate following up. You have the Fafnir providing that AoE slow whenever he's transforming into that draconic form. And on top of that, there's no escapes from Burrito. The only member from Burrito that has a chance of surviving from those Cabrakan walls is going to be that Osiris.
Being able to walk through the wall with his passive, we might need to see an early Phantom from Burrito just to negate that Cabrakan ultimate wall. A lot of aggressive gods on Papis. Last picking this Robin means that I feel there's going to be a lot of pressure on the solo jungle side.
There probably will be a lot of pressure there, but you also have to consider that Burrito has just as much burst potential early on. They have that Zeus, they have the Habwa. I'm anticipating it to be a Habwa jungle. Can't really see anywhere else for that god to go. Maybe even in the solo lane, looking for some of that free farm, and it is going to be Johnny piloting that Habwa.
This is what they did last week against Papis. I believe Johnny played Habwa in games 1 and 2. Game 3 was Sibi in the solo lane. And this goes to show that Burrito is very flexible in their god pool diversity, and they're kind of difficult to really lock down.
I'm still really leaning towards this Habwa. He definitely has his disadvantages in the early game. Mages aren't exactly known for having a huge health pool to work with, so even the slightest ability damage could really take Johnny out of the contest for his own jungle buffs.
Well, not only that, he drops the carpet down, and then all of a sudden everyone is just running away from Warchi's son, so the slow is inconsequential, not going to be providing the same oomph that it would normally do.
With Warchi also having... But Warchi will be in the dual lane for a little bit, so he probably isn't going to see Johnny for quite some time. And actually, it's going to be Caspanify and Warchi just taking up that standard 1v1 boxing match.
Mr. Nazer, though, applying the damage with the Stellar Burst in the mid lane. You were talking about where these supports are going to roll. They're going to roll in the mid lane, but instead, Papis, they're going to play aggressive around the blue. Johnny's going to look to try to secure it, but instead, there's too many minions under their own tower that they have to deal with.
Thought about it, still thinking about it with the water spout knockup, but Kari just going into those tremors, making it almost impossible for the Papis, for Burrito to work in, and Daylo's rotation as well. 3 members surrounding surrounding that blue buff just means that Johnny knows he's got to forfeit it.
Burrito started at their own speed. Papis started in the solo lane, and because of that lane push initially, allowed them the opportunity to force Burrito in an option. Do we give up the wave, or do we give up blue buff? They chose the latter to give that up, considering that Sibi is not going to necessarily need the blue buff to apply pressure.
Burrito, though, calling in the reinforcements, looking at these fire elementals. Actually, a sprint being popped by Sibi. He really wants to chase this one down. The buffs are both still up for the Papis, and it's going to be Burrito aggressing onto that blue buff.
A one-for-one trade in terms of the blue buff, unless Creed can find this knock-up steal. The beautiful knock-up from Johnny going to prevent that one from ever happening, though. The nice little one-for-one trade. Sibi still getting his blue buff.
Great cleanse there by Fusify, just ensuring that Sibi doesn't take any follow-up damage from that hammer stun by Draco Marino. And now everybody's going to kind of just disperse back to the same lanes they were already farming.
We're looking at the experience per minute now as the Hunters are just skyrocketing over, despite all this sort of little mini action because of how much experience was shared on the right side of the map between both of these teams. These Hunters are going to hit the level 5 marker first and maybe could look for the 1v1 plays. Speeds on both sides.
Warchi actually hitting level 5 sooner than Caspanify, but he's a little bit poked out. The Oracles are still standing with Fusify's rotation, though, and Farrakrig just to make sure that Caspanify can secure these. He'll have his Stinger now online in case Warchi does want to look for the boxing.
It's very difficult for a Hou-Yi to not get poked out by AMC, no matter who's piloting it. You throw out the Beast, you throw out the Honey after the fact, and that's a lot of damage over time. Not to mention the Beasts are going to spread over the course of the duration of it, and slowly but surely before the lifesteal comes into effect, Caspanify should have the slight edge.
I think Caspanify heard you while you were going on about that, considering that he literally just dropped those bees and honey. Didn't look for that poke potential just yet with that second ability, but Warchi going for it. Either way, he's going to commit all the way, and he's actually finding the first blood in the 2v1.
1v2, Warchi don't care. Long hair on the Hou-Yi, finding the first kill now, separating himself with a 1 kill.
Look at Caspanify's actives. He didn't use his beads. Even after he was hit with the Ricochet, Mark of the Crow stun underneath that ultimate, he didn't feel threatened because he had his support there.
Yes, he did have the Geb shield, so sometimes there's issues around certain players where it's like, oh, I feel like my Geb's not too close to me. I need to beads here, but his Geb was literally right in front of him, but only a level 4. That Geb shield doesn't provide enough health to sustain himself from the damage from Warchi this early on.
That was a great recognition play by Warchi, though. Just full committing, no hesitation, knowing that he wasn't going to get cataclysmed out of any follow-up damage, and he knew the shield was on cooldown as well. It was really just excellent gameplay by Warchi.
At first, I thought he was just using it to clear the wave and then make a back play, finishing off boots, but instead, because of that first blood, he's able to complete his Devourer gloves, whereas Caspanify back with only tier 2.
That's kind of what you expect, though. That's what every Hunter really looks to do early on, especially as a Hou-Yi. You don't really expect a Hunter to look at a 2v1 scenario and be, I'm going to take this. But Warchi did it.
He's one of those players from Papis that's able to make plays like that. If I look at everybody from Papis, I'm looking specifically from Warchi to kind of make those highlight plays. And
Warchi needs to make those kind of plays because those are the plays that are really going to put Papis ahead. Speaking of which, Fusify with the unfortunate blink ult there. Caught up a little bit short on that one.
Doing his best Polar Bear mic impression with the missed Cataclysm, unfortunately, in the mid lane, but still showing the fear and the dominance. Is like, hey, look what I could potentially do.
Yeah, there was a conversation not too long ago, and I have to agree. Being a support and blinking in to miss something has got to be one of the worst feelings in the world, at least top 3, just because you're left standing there while everybody just stares at you.
And then all you do is you either jump up and down in place, or you turn around, it's like, you guys didn't see that.
At least it wasn't Ares.
At least
it wasn't Ares.
That would have been really bad. If you blink in as Ares and you don't find a single target, Caspanify gonna juke out that stun. Just not in range for Warchi, but still looking to apply a little bit of pressure onto that purple buff. The honey's gonna come out. Last hit does go for Warchi, but Caspanify, a lot of trouble. Beast comes out this time around, but the dive bomb enough for the second kill.
And again, Warchi just punishing Caspanify for trying to venture into his own jungle. Fusify just a little bit too far away at the time, wasn't even able to get that shield off, and Purification Beast being down is only gonna make Caspanify even more susceptible to this aggression from Warchi. Warchi.
And not only that, the bees were used really early on that purple buff. Normally, you're using your ability to confirm the buff instead of like trying to initially do it, especially with the opposing hunter right around the corner. Like, did he think all of a sudden that Warchi would just allow him to get his purple for free?
Gotta appreciate Draco there, though. That Fafnir hammer stun really setting that play up beautifully for Warchi. Just all you gotta do is land your abilities, and anytime your support does that much work for you already, even though it just seems like a simple one ability toss out, it really makes all the difference.
And Warchi's just still continuing the dominance there, not even allowing Fusify to hold the wave outside of the tower for Caspainify, and that one little positional advantage keeps building the momentum. The experience difference is about 200 per minute now with a 2-level lead from Warchi, with red buff still around his waist. Having fully completed Ninja Tabby, he's not going to stop this pressure anytime soon.
And this is going to make things incredibly stressful for Burrito. Johnny already struggling a little bit in his own jungle as far as securing buffs and the available global farm, the fire elementals and whatnot, but the Papis have really just established so much map dominance, and especially having the dual lane controlled so heavily by Warchi is only going to make it even easier for Daylo, Creed to just consistently rotate around the map, not really having to look at that dual lane.
And with the dominance, they don't necessarily just overextend beyond this imaginary midline. They have this 1,000 goal lead, which isn't like that big of a deal at the 7.5 minute mark, but more importantly, it's the experience that they're building between themselves here slightly with the hunter position that they could eventually look to exploit, because that first objective of the game is 9 times out of 10 around the goal fury.
Actually a little bit surprised that Warchi and Daylo didn't try to invade that red buff, but not having any sense of knowing when that buff is going to be up and running for Burrito. It also shows that Papis are still trying to play with a little bit of discipline, not looking to really overextend.
Not only that, the warding wasn't in their favor either. There's a triangular formation from Burrito that would spot any invades coming. So if Daylo does make that position play, that he would be well prepared for from Burrito.
Grouping now happening in the mid lane. Papis not really as concerned about grouping up in that mid. Kind of just been sharing that farm between Mr. Nazer and Draco Marino. They've both been chilling, except for right now.
Trying to go with the Cataclysm to knock up the Hebo, doing the damage. The Aegis will be used, trying to buy him some time. The sun's going to come down. Faircrick finding the first victim onto Mr. Nazer. Draco Marino, though, he gets crippled with a stinger before flying away.
Beautiful ultimate there by Caspainify, but speaking of which, on the opposite side of the map, that's not where all the action is taking place. They're also taking out Sibi. Daylo getting credit for that one.
Even using his ultimate, but it just wasn't enough. The damage is really high. Also, out of the Kabrak, and he's kind of that fat Loki that does the damage in the Guardian role, rooted into the stun. Great double action there, killing Fusify.
Poor Fusify, even after dropping the shield on himself, it still wasn't tanky enough. And it really is an excellent display for the Papis and how much damage they can output, especially Warchi. He is absolutely massive right now. 2-level lead over Caspainify. I know level 12 might not seem like anything too important, but as a hunter already having that second relic, it's going to make those boxing trades even easier for Warchi.
He had the red buff, fully stacked Devo gloves, boots finished before Caspainify did, and that's what's allowing Papis to just control these matchups. The blink engage from Fusify was pretty clutch there as well, being able to really start things off in his team's favor with Johnny kind of collapsing underneath. But just like this, Caspainify still in a weird and awkward position, 1v2.
Did you see those in-hands, though? They were completely chunking away at Caspainify. And I know that they're hunters and that they're supposed to do damage, but this is such a huge advantage for Warchi. He does not even care about Fusify showing face in the lane anymore. He is level 8.
He's baiting us because he has his lane partner right around the corner. Suns onto the gap, transforming into the dragon. Another victim. Fusify gets taken out. Warchi with his 4th kill of the game.
And a great stun there by Draco just to make sure that Caspainify couldn't try and support his Geb even if he wanted to. Daylo also making the rotation, and with Fusify being down and out for the count, Papis are actually going to feel confident enough to pull this Goal Fury.
Dropping the ward underneath the left side mid Harpies. They spot out Johnny and Faircrick around the corner. Now that Draco is out of the dragon form, he only has that single target coerce. Sibi's getting bullied out in the solo lane on the right side, whereas Papis is still making a statement on the left.
Creed really making life difficult for Sibby, just popping those tremors every single wave. There's really not a lot, especially when you're an auto attacker like Osiris. You want to get that cleave off onto the creeps, really proc the death toll, and just have the most efficient clearing. But when you're trapped inside those tremors and everything's shaking, it can be a lot harder to manage.
And normally an Osiris in the soul lane would have the Gladiator shield completed at this point, but because he's against the Guardian, hold that thought though, in the mid lane, Johnny gets poked out a little bit, was looking for that ultimate setup, but the rest of the action is going to disperse a little bit. Kind of poking for poking, but as I was talking about the soul lane matchup, because he's against the Guardian for Sibby, he's forced to kind of go this hybrid build, now going into Height of Urchin, completing it, but not having the sustain that you would normally have from an early Gladiator shield.
At the same time, the Kree did delay his build a little bit because he built that Swift Wing, so as opposed to having that Dynasty Plate Helm already online, he's actually trailing a little bit behind Sibby.
Just not able to really make things happen, especially trying to catch people with his first steroid ability. Even though you get an extra movement speed from just proccing it, having an extra 5% is going to allow him to guarantee hit somebody. I think Fusify is kind of should allow Caspanify to free farm, considering how far ahead Warchi is, no?
Caspanify would typically want to try and free farm, but it's difficult because if he's left alone with Warchi, Warchi can very easily freeze the wave, and then that kind of just prevents Caspanify from getting even more farm, which makes things worse. So ultimately, having Fusify there actually is beneficial, but it's also incredibly risky.
Better safe than sorry for Papis, just making sure that they're starting up these Oracles. Blink from Fusify. They thought that they were going to do the Gold Fury, not the Oracles, but now he's left without any defense.
And he's trapped right there in the middle of everybody. Warchi going to get the credit for that one yet again, and now the Papis really wanted to take an eye out on this Gold Fury, but recognizing that rotation from Burrito, they're going to back off instead.
The pings just all across the map. There was a regular ward from Papis right in front of the tier 1 mid tower from Burrito. Seeing that rotation, backs off immediately from the Gold Fury, finding the 1 kill onto Fusify before he's too tanky in the game. It's still 13-minute mark, only a level 9 Geb, nowhere near to being that unkillable rock.
It seemed like a little bit of miscommunication there for Burrito, though. For Fusify to commit with that Blink Cataclysm, it really meant that the call had either been made for a Gold Fury engagement, defend, or let's go in on these Oracles. Oracles had already been secured, though, by the time he got there with that Blink, and it just turned into a really awkward situation where you're a Geb trapped behind a Gold Fury.
And nobody was just close enough to follow up from that Blink Cataclysm, just wanting to peel it back. Now it's going to be a Blink from Johnny. The knockup is good. The hammer is not going to be able to stun out Johnny. Nice little egg is preventing it preemptively, but the bees is coming out. Johnny's still looking to play very aggressive, but he's not pulling the trigger. Fusify instead will, and immediately Warchi getting crippled. Didn't have the bees available at the time.
Can only egg us out so much damage for so long. Johnny able to accomplish his initial mission of taking Warchi out. Warchi has been so incredibly fed this entire game, and 5-1-0. This is the time for Burrito to make plays when that Hunter isn't there to deal damage.
Johnny still having his ultimate, because Spainify hitting his ultimate means that he's resetting that Stinger cooldown from 90 to 20 seconds. The damage from Burrito is through the roof if they're going to look to make a play happen. But instead of going for the Gold Fury, they're making a pretty big committal towards the right side of the map. 3 members getting those mid Harpies, whereas Caspanify did have to back. He didn't have too much mana, but look what Papis are doing. They're thinking about maybe starting. No, I thought they were going to start it, but instead they're
It looked like it. I can agree with you on that one. It seemed as though Jacob really wanted to commit on this Gold Fury. That might have been perfect timing because there isn't a whole lot of ward vision around the area other than that from the Papis. So they might have actually gotten away with it. They just didn't feel comfortable enough knowing that Warchi was still due to respawn for a couple of seconds, and in that small period of time, if any other members from the Papis had gone down, Burrito might have turned that situation.
There's always a window of opportunity for a Gold Fury, no matter how far ahead or behind you are in terms of your kill potential of this objective. And the first 3 picks from Papis, Soul, the Fafnir, and the Ho Yi, those just scream Gold Fury objectives like you were talking about, so Burrito can't allow them to kind of get those for free. That's why I think Fusify looked for that Blink engagement earlier.
Speaking of which, Warchi, no act is available. He's going to get completely destroyed. all of those ultimates. Took 2 to take him out, but now Mr. Nazer trying to return some of that damage fire onto Johnny. That Geb shield, though, going to keep him plenty healthy enough.
I love the patience from Johnny, not committing with the ultimate. Oracle's going for a burrito yet again. Fusify setting up the plays, taking advantage of the fact that War Cheese relics were still on cooldown for about another 50 seconds or so beforehand, and that Stinger securing the kill. Golfier, though, very low from Burrito. It's going to get reset, though, and they secure it themselves.
Johnny, though, he's looking to get pretty low. Dalo trying to commit. It's going to be Draco actually taking him out for the count, but Farrakrick making sure to return the favor to Dalo. Now everybody's trying to collapse on top of Fusify. Mr. Nazer going to get the last hit onto that one. Draco Marino, though, he's in a lot of trouble, and Caspanify will make sure he goes back to base as well.
Burrito, they get the Golfier. They only lose 2 members as if they're getting 3 of their own. Sibby's very, very low under this tier 1 mid tower. Creed is going to pop the thorns and kill himself over that. Caspanify, though, he's still not done yet. Creed is going to die to the Stinger with Farrakrick right around the corner. 3 dead Burrito members after getting the own gold Fury.
That's one of those moments where you kind of just regret putting out the damage output. Sibby, I like the mentality there. He's just trying to get some slows off, try and keep himself alive. Unfortunately, Creed had the thorns available just then and there. Still, at least he got punished for that overcommit onto the T1 tower. He probably did need to die for aggressing so hard into that T1.
Trying to make something happen out of nothing, but really getting punished for it. You know, using your 1-2 ability here from the Osiris, like you were talking about before, you're trying to get the movement speed to just separate the gap there, slowing Creed and amplifying your own movement speed. But that second ability does a decent amount of damage, and that Thorns return is just kind of like lol in the chat.
And speaking of which, Mr. Nazer is starting to feel the water hands out from Johnny. That commit by the Fusify into the Cataclysm, but he missed the ultimate.
Huge miss from Johnny, not finding the kill onto Mr. Nazer. Still having a decent amount of help, and now he's out of position. The stun is going to basically get beat down, but he's stuck under that Kabrakan ultimate. Zeus ultimate is not going to be enough to save his jungler. The rest of Papis going to disengage after that one pick.
I like what Farrakrick tried to do there, though, for his jungler. Dropping that Zeus ultimate down on top of the Kabrakan's ult means that the Papis don't really want to stand around in that area. They have enough range damage, though, to be able to take out Johnny.
Similar story with War Cheese ultimates. It's a huge zoning mechanism. Whether or not you actually deal the damage of all the ticks from the Zeus ultimate, the Hui ultimate, the space control provided from those 2 abilities, it's what's going to make it or break it as these team fights keep happening.
Warchi, though, he's got to be careful here. And speaking of careful, Fusify actually caught out a little bit here. He's going to be able to get out with the rollout. He managed to make it into the CC immunity portion.
Nobody used that root duration opportunity to get in front of the gap to stop the rollout, but Poppy's confident enough to start up this Portal Demon, sitting at about 25% health, but instead they're shifting their attention to Farrakrick. The egg is buying enough time as Mr. Nazer takes out Sibby, but the chase is on to Caspanify.
And Draco, he's trying to get his Hammer Stuns out, but Dalo's actually dealing with 3 members from Burrito on the back end. Poppy's still trying to take out this Portal Demon. They got to be careful because Caspanify is making that rotation as well.
They get the objective. They killed out Sibby earlier on. It's a 5-on-4. Still Kabrakan ultimate to separate everybody from the left-hand side. Nice little stun into the slow from Draco Marino. The rest of Poppy's still need to disengage, though.
And that shell, just in case, really concerned about that Hawa damage on top of Caspanify's. Warchi still hanging around, though, with Draco just to make sure that Burrito don't try anything special. Speaking of which,
Creed going through the portal. He's going to buy his team a little bit of time now to make this rotation happen. The blink onto Fusify. He's in a lot of trouble. He's going to have to Geb Shield, Cataclysm himself, the knockup onto Warchi. Warchi's going to jump over the damage provided from Johnny. The blink, the stun, the damage. Johnny trying to run away with an ultimate of himself, but it's just not. Oh, he blinks away at the last second, but I don't think Papis is done with this one.
That was so spicy, though. Johnny still going to cost with his life, but Creed getting the cleanup on that one. Caspanify doing what he can on the backside, trying to deal as much damage as possible. Draco going to be able to get away for the moment. Farrakrick actually managed to take out Dalo on that back end.
He healed from the coerce. He's going to be able to jump away after transforming back into the dwarf. Farrakrick with a double of his own. It's a 2-for-2 at the end of the day. Poppy's overcommitting under that tier 1 tower.
Sometimes you just forget that the T1 still exists. That tower is in such a low HP threshold.
Crick forced to use the beads, but Warchi is feeling himself so much. Mr. Nazer could follow up easily. Tier 1 does go down. Stellar Burst for the easy cleanup. No relics available for Farah.
And Warchi just trusting his mid laner to get that cleanup kill. Doesn't even bother trying to stick around. Doesn't want to risk both of them getting caught out. He knew that Mr. Nazer was going to be pushing forward past that T1 tower line, and with that in mind, he didn't want to die just in case Mr. Nazer was taken out.
Just cycling the Tier 1 tower aggro play there. The Hunter to the mid and then backwards and forwards, and it was Mr. Nazer that was easily able to clean up once Warchi initially forced the early purification beads. Whenever you give a Hunter this much momentum from the early game, being able to make a 1v2 play, you guarantee he's going to make a play when it's a 2-on-1 instead.
Warchi, though, he does need to be careful. It's not the first time that we saw him get handled with a Cataclysm, a Stinger, straight into... Speaking of which, Papis actually taking out the Gold Fury. Caspanify forcing the Purification Beach, trying to get away now from Dalo, who's already committed the ultimate on them.
He's trying to go on them. It's really hard. As Fusify is trying to escape himself, the support is going to fall in place of his Hunter, but Papis walk away with their first Gold Fury of the game. It's been close action. The blink from Dalo and Creed. They're logging him under that Tier 2 tower. No possible escape. Nobody around him, and that's going to be a second dead Burrito.
Caspanify. They caught a glimpse of those wings, I think, and that made Creed feel confident enough to just blink underneath that T2 tower. These blinks have been so crucial for the Papis on their initiation.
Abusing the 5-on-3 advantage. Papis in the mid lane, 5 healthy, getting the Tier 1 guaranteed. They could look for a Tier 2 if they really wanted to, but instead they're going to back off and respect the damage from Johnny. His ultimate isn't available to really catch that knock-up ultimate combo.
And Draco actually getting hit by that chain lightning and the detonate damage was more than enough to deter the Papis, I think, not really wanting to risk things just in case they started getting bounced around a little bit. Zeus can always have that pop-off factor.
Zeus has the juice, and he provides it with the chain lightning and the ultimate. It's a huge AoE. So getting that Tier 2, it was a safe idea for Papis to just disengage, not overextending, respecting the short respawn timers also from the dead Burritos.
One thing I'm also keeping an eye on is that Warchi committed to a crit build this game, and fortunately enough for him, it's only Sibi who has a Thorn. So if Warchi is able to really get a little bit of momentum going, he is going to absolutely destroy these team fights.
As long as that he's not going to be hitting Sibi necessarily, and he has somebody to get peeled for, specifically probably Creed on the Tremors would be the best form of peel in general, then he'll be in a good place at the right time. Sibi, though, forced to use that defensive ultimate, feeling really threatened on the right side, even using that sprint, and that's something that Papis can certainly take advantage of.
That's a pretty big team fighting relic actually for Burrito. It's helped them numerous times as far as disengaging effectively from the Papis. The Papis have a lot of mobility on their team, and for Burrito, they've got to be really careful. Speaking of which, 5-man grouping right at the front of this Fire Giant pit, really trying to establish their territory in front of the Papis.
Yeah, without that sprint, all the slows from Papis is going to be that much stronger. That one stun and then an AoE slow from Draco Marino. You got the Stellar Burst from Nazer, and then Dalo throwing them hands out there, trying to slow a bunch of members. Now it's going to be Papis trying to make something happen in mid lane, jump onto Johnny, not able to connect on the hammer, but the blink from Dalo going to force out the Hebo a little bit further. Now it's Farrakrick that needs to retreat onto his non-existent Tier 1 tower. The Aegis going to buy some time, but the knock up into the Zeus ultimate. Thorns being popped as well. Farrakrick is first to fall.
They just do not even care about this magical damage coming out. Creed just eating that ultimate from Johnny, getting a great 3-man stun there. Gonna buy his team enough time to disengage. Mr. Nazer looking for that supernova.
So close with that supernova. It was a one-on-one initially. Mid lane or solo lane. That Zeus AoE control not available from Burrito, but then the zoning backline penetration is not available from Creed. So this is going to allow Burrito to solo this portal demon.
Papis have been finding great engagements, but then they've been splitting up a little bit too much afterwards, and with about 3 different target focuses. Speaking of which, Fusify kind of just caught in between Mr. Nazer and Draco Marino, now trying to get away. Rollout is going to save his life.
Trying to run away now is Sibi, though. He's kind of juking and baiting out some abilities, barely able to avoid that ricochet. Caspanify allowing Fusify to get kind of caught in the middle of a sandwich of a 1v2. I think Caspanify was afraid that he was the one that's going to be aggressed on.
And for good reason. It's really hard to determine which way these teams want to go, whether they want to play the aggressive factor or if they just want to fake it out. Looking for the fake out is never a bad way to go, and Warchi actually getting zoned out by Sibi. That portal demon is going to go in favor of Burrito.
They're going to secure that objective, but Sibi takes a lot of damage, even forced the gap shield, but it's all a bait. It's Farrakrick, that's the target. The ultimate from the Kabrakan goes into effect, but these Suns are just peeling away Burrito. The Zeus ultimate was also used. These two ultimates are just negating each other out.
But that was completely saved for Burrito because Sibi's sprint was off cooldown, so having that sprint available means that he was able to get his team out and away from the Tremors, from the Suns out of Huyi's ultimate, and that ultimately saved that team fight for Burrito.
Fire Chime being started because Burrito took the portal after they took all that damage. Is about half health right now. Knock up onto Draco Marino, forcing him to back up. Dale's going to overhead kick, but the damage onto Johnny. Mr. Nazer finding Farrakrick as well.
Look at Draco Marino as well. He caught out Fusify because of that draconic form, getting the slow on top of him, trapped inside that Fire Giant pit. Sibi's going to get run down by Dalo, although Dalo could pay for his life.
The up and down from Dalo. Here comes the Creed trying to secure the kill onto Caspanify. There's 4 dead members, and now it's going to be an official deicide as the rest of Papis secure their first Fire Giant.
What seemed like it could have been such a great engagement for Burrito was completely turned on its head by the Papis. Just Mr. Nazer starting that one off hot.
And there was just not that many relics available earlier on. Farrakrick has his double relics, assuming they just came off of cooldown during the respawn timers. Papis abusing these relics, communicating very well. Mr. Nazer with the hotness.
This has also been one of the best games I've seen from Creed. Hold that thought, though. It's going to be Fusify trying to get an engagement going. He's going to get caught out. But he was caught out underneath his Phoenix, although the Phoenix isn't there any longer. Neither are the Papis actually making that swift rotation over to the mid lane, trying to take out these remaining towers.
Johnny's going to get stunned out. Farrakrick's right beside him, but this tier 2 is just absolutely melted. No frontliners were present from Burrito to really allow this damage sources to kind of overextend here. And I like what Papis were doing, though. They really looked at those timers of Burrito respawning like, all right, we have enough of a window to go for that Phoenix. They got it, even abusing the tier 2 mid, and they had about an 8,000 gold lead not even a minute ago, already beyond 10,000, just like that.
Even if Burrito had been respawning, the Papis have enough objective shred to where I don't even think it matters at this point. When you have a Fafnir and a Soul with a Hu Yi, even with Warchi not having the most ideal build for soloing or taking out those Phoenixes or the towers, it doesn't matter. There's just so much damage between these two hunters and the Fafnir to just completely take out any tower.
More options are never a bad thing for any team in SMITE competitive play, and that's exactly what Papis were able to do this game with their first 3 picks. Really abusing the objective side of things. Their zoning control was also very impactful here. It was very difficult, I feel, for Johnny to really get anything going, simply because Fusify was either the target early on or kind of these botched engages by the get.
They're also just entirely too tanky. Papis, I think, did a great job at drafting gods that weren't going to really be that impacted by the water cannon or the water spout out of this Habwa. Johnny has really been lacking the player damage, and it's not entirely his own fault. He's been doing his best to look for Warchi and Mr. Nazer on the backside. It's just so difficult when they have so much frontline available.
He does have the blink. He could look for a play here, but this tier 2 tower has melted completely. Right side Phoenix is still down, but the wave is pushed out far enough to allow Burrito to potentially defend either middle or left side Phoenix, but I don't think Papis is going to give this one up anytime soon.
Warchi catching Johnny out with that ricochet stun. Fusify was looking for the blink Cataclysm, but instead he's going to get interrupted in the middle of it all.
Fusify, Cataclysm trying to do what he can. The Zeus Juice coming out as well, rolling into safety. He's going to get stunned out and taken out. 5 stand strong from Papis, only 3 make that 2 from Burrito. Right Phoenix still dead. Mid Phoenix falls now. The blink from Creed trying to catch Caspanify. I think they're going to go for the end, Taco.
Farrakrick doesn't have his ultimate available any longer. Caspanify still has that stinger. He's going to look for it. He's going to take out Mr. Nazer.
The Titan is getting lower and lower. First game going to Papis.
And a little bit of back and forth there, but still